Hi, and welcome to the Lewiston Tribune podcast. This is episode number 36. I'm Matt Baney, managing editor of the Tribune, and I'm joined today by Denny Grubb. Denny, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Matt. It's good to see you. All those years we spent together in the press box, and it's good to get together with you.
Oh, thank you, Denny. Yes, Denny is the official statistician of the NAIA World Series, so this is a big week for him. And Denny and I are going to talk about his role in the tournament over the years. Before we get into that, just a reminder that the Lewiston Tribune podcast is available at lmtribune.com, on YouTube, and on all the podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to subscribe to us, and we have a new episode every week. So, Denny, the World Series is here. It starts tomorrow as we're filming this. And what's your feeling on the eve of the World Series? Are you excited or nervous or exhausted, or what is it?
Well, I used to be exhausted. This day and age of technology, I mean, if you get the rosters in your laptops, and so more rest is being taken now than it was 40 years ago. But I think more than anything, not really nervous, anxious. We have a second year without the local team. Last year, I was very pleased with the turnout, I thought, without LC being in there. Ticket sales might be down a little bit. So, as far as the fans coming out, I'm kind of anxious to see how that will be. But I think we have a great field. We've got some super stories from these teams coming in here this year.
Yeah, which in particular are you kind of most interested in among the teams that are going to
Well,
play?
we've got the team from Shreveport, Louisiana, undefeated, 54-0, which, as we were talking about, I can't think of any other team that plays that many games. Yeah, some football teams maybe, but you would think 54-0 somewhere along the line you're going to stumble. So that's going to be something to see. I mean, if they happen to go 0-2. You're wondering, well, who did they play? Or they could win it in 5 games and leave here 59-0, and that would be just you'd never be able to match that. I don't think you can tie it, but we have that. We have the returning champions, Hope International's here, so trying to repeat since the first time since 2017 when LCSC did it, and we've got 5 returning teams from last year, so 4 of them are trying to avenge their loss to Hope International from last year. So there's some good stories, great teams out there, and some super records.
And the weather looks good. I don't. It does not appear as though a weather delay will get in the way.
I would say that until I just came into the Tribune and it was raining, but right on schedule. But it looks like the highest percentage is 20% in the next 5 days. So it might sprinkle a little bit, but I don't see any of the 50 to 60 to 70%. And the temperatures are going to be great, mid 70s to low 80s. So I think that plays a lot into the attendance too, and the play on the field.
Mm-hmm. We should go back now. Denny, your association with the NAIA and LCSC goes back quite a ways. When did you first start getting into the stat keeping game at LCSC?
Well, I tell the story of Dick Hannon was the athletic director at Lewis Clark State when I was a senior in high school, 1977 at Lewiston. And he saw my athletic ability, and he instantly saw that I could be a great statistician. So having nowhere to go to play any sports, he actually gave me a $100 scholarship to come to LC. And my first contest here was to keep track of was the fall baseball of 1977, and kept track of every sport. They had women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, up until they had got an official, what they call now a sports information director, in 2000. And as I was there and the World Series came to Lewiston in 1984, Hannon it was a natural for him to ask me to, keep track of the stats, and met with a guy, Paul Merkel from Whitworth, who was kind of the NAIA stat guru at the time, who had kept all the history. And he passed it along to me, and I followed it. It came to Lewiston in '84. It was here for 8 years. I went with it to Des Moines and Sioux City, and then the NAIA did kind of their own thing for a couple years.
So you've, yeah, the World Series first came here in '84, like you said. It went away for a while. This week will be the 33rd time it's been contested in Lewiston, and you've been there for all of them.
Right. This will be my 38th. I write on each score sheet. My official job is to, not anymore, is to call hits and errors and then accumulate the stats, look for the history. With the technology and the younger guys, I have Sam Grist from Eastern Oregon who puts everything online for us. But so on each score sheet that I keep a running total. And so tomorrow morning, it'll be game number 670 for me to keep stats at. So not that I'm a numbers guy, but I am a numbers guy.
And here's my favorite stat, Denny. So yes, the World Series has been in Lewiston now, 33rd tournament coming up. And you would think that Denny has been to every single Lewiston World Series game, but that is not true, correct?
That's a great trivia question. You can win some money on it. There's guys that have been around a while. Butch Alford's seen a lot of games. From Cozy, Mike has seen a lot of games. But the first year it was here in 1984, because of all the rain, we had to move a game up to Pullman, to WSU. And it happened to be the same time as the game was being played here at Harris Field. So we sent one of the athletic, at that time, the assistant basketball coach, John McCoy, to stat that game. So nobody can be at two places at one time. And so nobody can say, they've said, well, I've seen every game played in Lewiston or hosted by Lewiston. Maybe played in Lewiston, you could say that, but not hosted by Lewiston because of that one game they played because they were so far behind in the schedule.
I think, though, you're probably pretty safe to say that you are probably the only person that's been to every single World Series game in Lewiston.
Probably pretty close, I would guess. Yeah, Gary Piconi's been around quite a while, but yeah, when you think about it, when I think back at who was there at the beginning and who's there now, yeah, I suppose I could probably fall into that category.
Mm-hmm. So, Denny, one thing that's been a lot of fun over the years is as you've been researching it and collecting all the records from the World Series, is you have kind of come up with the interesting facts about the tournament, about NAIA baseball, and that you're kind of a detective in that way. I sense that you really enjoy that. That's probably kind of a fun hobby for you to look into all that stuff.
It is. I love researching, especially that. And that all comes from, I mentioned Paul Merkel. When he handed me over the history, they had about 50 categories of stats. And through the years of people asking, has that ever happened before? When was the last time that happened? You just start researching and you start pulling up the old stats. And so we're now over 500 categories from, caught stealing to the wild pitches to, all the big ones like home runs. So, and that, I don't know why my mind is like that. It's a numbers thing. I like baseball and it's just fun to try. Just yesterday we had a meeting with all the sports information directors from around the country that are here with their teams, wondering how many, like this year, there's 5 teams back that played in last year's. Is that a record? Well, it's things like that. Well, it's not a record. I happen to have that, but one year there were 8 teams repeated from the year before. So it's questions like that. You look up, you keep track of it, and every year there's something. Last year we had that wild game where Reinhardt scored 30 runs, 27 hits. Has this ever happened? When was the last time? So you just, whenever you look up, keep track of it, and then 3 or 4 years down the road, when everybody else forgets about it, you bring it up and say, hey, here's a record for you.
Do you have a favorite World Series stat or record, anything like that you really just kind of you just enjoy digging up?
Well, I think when you look back at all the numbers from that 1987 when the teams averaged 20 runs a game combined. Lewis Clark State, in 9 innings, they were the visiting team, so they had to bat 9 times. They scored 23 runs. Okay, there's teams that have scored that many, but they also left 23 runs on base. So you figure in 9 innings, they had at least 46 guys get on base. 23 scored, 23 were left on base. You can only leave 27 in 9 innings, so they scored 23. I think of all the weird stats that can happen, that's probably one of the top ones.
Yeah. And then how about, is there a game in the World Series that you look back on and is particularly memorable?
Well, we've had a lot of walk-offs. There was one in that 87 series where Arkansas was playing, and they led 16-2, I think, at one time. And the team they were playing came back and got within 1. And then all of a sudden, Arkansas was ahead 24-17. And then the team they were playing came back, and it was 24-23, bottom of the 9th, bases loaded, and the team didn't score. So the final of that one was 24-23. 1986, the Warriors, LC had won 2 tournaments in a row, and they were playing in the championship game, extra innings against Grand Canyon, who at the time was the NAIA power. They had 3 titles. Nobody thought anybody would ever win 3 titles. Here's the Warriors sitting on 19. But so LC, it went into extra innings. The game was tied, bottom of the 10th. Grand Canyon was up. They had the bases loaded and 2 outs. And they had a little blooper down the right field line. And you could just watch the Warrior right fielders trying to come in, the second baseman trying to go over. Just kind of dinked in their right fair ball. And that stopped a string of what would have been, 9 consecutive Warrior World Series, because they won it 86-92. Except for that 84-92, except for that 86 year, that bottom of the 10th, they lost to Grand Canyon. It's not a good memory, but it's probably the one I can vividly remember watching those defensive players trying to get to that ball. Would have been the 3rd out. Who knows what would have happened after that, but that stopped the string. We've had a lot of extra inning games, a lot of walk-off games. The first game ever played here in the World Series was a walk-off game. So yeah, it's no-hitters. I've seen a couple of no-hitters, one here and one in Des Moines. Those are always, as a statistician, people think, oh, you got to see a no-hitter, but that's the only time I think a statistician turns coal into diamonds, because of the reason. You make the call in the 8th inning if that's a hit or an error. A guy throwing a no-hitter on a close call, you're like, oh, what's so tough about that? Well, every game we have calls where the official statistician makes the call, hit, error, and some people disagree. But so you're hoping that my hope is the no-hitter's over in the 1st inning every game. I'd like to see a no-hitter, but I don't want to be there in the 9th inning when the guy has 2 outs, the pitcher, the guy hits a little blooper, and the guy dives for it. Could he have caught it? Is that an error? You have to make the call. But so there's been some no-hitters. There's been, a lot of shutouts and things like that. But I hate to say not the fondest, but the most memorable is that Grand Canyon walk-off in the bottom of the 10th.
Right. Well, it's interesting you mentioned the no-hitter, and that's one thing that's kind of unique about baseball, being a stat keeper in baseball, is you really kind of have a role to play in it, because baseball is such a game of numbers, and it's just kind of part of the fabric of the game is keeping track of the numbers. And yeah, the statistician, really in a no-hitter situation, really they're a central figure in the game. And have you ever scored a no-hitter, World Series or otherwise, where you did have a tough call in it, or maybe a one-hit game where the one hit was borderline?
Yeah, not that I can remember. I think they pretty much have been clean hits or errors. Yeah. I know you mentioned keeping the stats and the important thing. The thing that I I find other than that, another important thing is, you have like you have 24, 20, now 26 players on a team, so you have 260 players coming into this World Series. And I was just figuring the other day, only about 28 of them have ever been here, player wise. A few coaches have, but and so you have parents looking online. To me, even a guy pinch hitting one time in the World Series, you don't want to miss that, because in 30 years he's going to tell his grandkids he played in the World Series. He wants to look it up. There's his name, pinch hitting or a pinch runner or something like that. So you have your no hitters, you have your smaller stats where a guy just pinch runs or a pinch hit home run, just things like that. That keep track of everything that goes on, however important it is, or however it seems not that important. But as a parent, you're like, oh right, so and so is getting to play, or he might pitch to one guy, but his name's in the record. So that's one of the things that I find is important, to keep track of all the little things like that, as well as all the big things of guys that are hitting 3 home runs in a game and setting the records in the World Series.
Yeah. So, yeah, Danny, you started with it in 1984, and here you are, still at it. How has the feel of the tournament, or have players, have fans, coaches, how have things changed, or is it still pretty similar to 84?
Well, I can remember '84, the old press box, which we have a new press box now. It came in 2000.
The Denny Grubb press box.
Yeah, the Denny Grubb press box. Like, you live long enough, you get things named after you, I think. But the first year was no idea. I'd never been to one. Coach Hannon went to the year before. It was held in Lubbock, Texas. He was there. Of course, Coach Sheff had some insight into how to run a World Series. So, we were very surprised, and we got terrible weather that first year. So the fans coming out, fighting the weather. But come championship time, LC actually lost their first ever World Series game. And we thought, oh, this is going to be great. 0-2, we're going to watch some team from Tennessee and some team from Florida that at the time nobody cares about. And they did fortunately come back and win 6 elimination games, but there were 5,000. Well, at the time we couldn't seat 5,000. There were upwards of 4,000 plus people came out, and we were like, okay, we got something on our hands here. And they just kept adding bleachers, had added to the press box. They added down the third baseline. And so the expectations at the beginning were, we didn't know. We really didn't know if this was going to be something that people would come out to. Would fans, from other teams think it's that important to fly or drive all the way to Lewiston, Idaho? So now, and then you fast forward to nowadays, I think the expectation, I think we'll get 2,000 fans out to the night games. People, it's now an event. A lot of people will say, I don't want to miss it. I've been there every year now since 2000, or kids that are growing up who remember being there, and they want to come back and bring, maybe they have a family. Yeah. It does hurt for LC not being in it. We're spoiled, and I'm not going to cry over the fact they're not here. They weren't one of the top 10 teams this year, and that's what the NAIA wanted to get when about 5, 6, 7 years ago they changed the format to these opening rounds, to where they could get the top 10 teams, not the top team from here and the top team from there. So we're seeing, I think, better overall fields, better teams. Yeah, we'd like to see LC in it, and they'll get back in it one of these years. They're 2 games away from getting in it this year. But the expectations are, to me, like Loyola's here for the first time. Just seeing the looks on their faces when they come in. These teams are playing in fields, a lot of them that seat 200 people. Mm-hmm. They're like, if you've been to Church Field, a lot of these teams are playing in fields like that. So they're coming to a place that seats almost 5,000 people, with the vendors that we have. So I think they're in awe of what goes on here, and they will be once the games start. They go to the schools, so the teams are treated to. They all got here on Tuesday. They've been to the school. They had the kids clinic. They have the banquet on Thursday night. So they are treated like royalty, and the kids really look up to them, and I think the teams really appreciate that. So to me, I like being there when the teams come for the first time, and just see the atmosphere that this valley puts on for them.
Yeah. Well, Denny, yeah, you've done it for so long now, and no plans to retire, I hope.
Well, it's funny I should mention that my daughter just dropped off my grandson or my grand dog, Pickle, and I told her where I was going, and she goes, "Well, how much longer are you going to do this?" I go, "I have no idea. I kind of tried to give it up a few years ago, and I'm not saying I'm irreplaceable. Nobody is. There were just things where I said, they're not doing it right. So I didn't miss any World Series games. I missed some LC games, but I enjoy doing it. I said once that they lose the bid here, I'm not going to obviously go with it. And if they invite me, I would, but and they just keep rebidding for every 3 years. So we're here till 2027. I'm open to anybody that wants to do it, but sitting there for starting on a Friday morning till this year, possibly a Saturday, 8 days, it's got to be somebody who can take vacation or, has some free time, another sports information guy that's here. But when their teams are out, they're not interested in sticking around and watching other teams. So I guess right now, I'll say as long as it's here and I can do it, I guess I'm here.
Well, it would not be the same without you. You are the stat man, and so anyway, as long as the World Series is here, I hope that you stick with it.
Well, I appreciate that. I do a couple of things for the Tribune. I do enjoy that they've taken hold of some of the off the wall records that I come up with, and people every year say, "Hey, I look forward to seeing your stuff in the Tribune." And I just talked to Butch Alfred a couple of days ago. He was at the honorary coaches meeting, and I said, "Hey, I want to." In our press box, we have a picture of the 1984. Now that's 41 years ago, right? Honorary coaches, and Butch is the only one. There's a few of them still alive, but he he was pointing them out to which ones he knew may not be around. But congratulations to him for sticking with it, and for the Tribune for sticking with the World Series. The preview paper they put out, even the teams from far away who have been here are amazed at the coverage they get. And that's another thing. Some of these teams are from big towns. I remember Oklahoma City coming here, and they would get a small column in their paper about being in the World Series because there's other things going on in Oklahoma City. There's other things going on in Shreveport, Louisiana. You have a team that's 54-0, undefeated, and they're hardly getting any coverage at all. It's better now with all the internet and things like that and the social media. Everybody has a Facebook page, but kudos to the Tribune for all they've done since it came here to in '84 also.
Well, thanks, Denny. Denny was just earlier this year inducted into the NAIA Hall of Fame in a ceremony in San Diego. What was that like?
Well, that was quite an honor, going down there and meeting people from around the country. There were, I think they had 16 people from different sports who were there, athletes, and I was in the meritorious service, and I thought that was great. I was honored to be there. I was surprised, but there aren't many in that category, and like I told my family, I mean, to get into a Hall of Fame just for keeping stats is something nobody ever thought they could do. But it all started back in 1973. My brother was working for KLHS, the Lewiston High School radio station, and he wanted me to keep basketball stats for him, I think. So since then, just keeping stats wherever people needed it. And so, yeah, that was an honor. And they flew me down there and put me up for a few days. Got to see Tony Gwynn Stadium at San Diego State. we toured Petco, the San Diego Padres. They weren't home, but they had a tour for us, and so yeah, it was quite an honor. I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, okay, Denny, you've got a lot of long days ahead of you here. How do you do it when it's about a 15, 16, maybe 17-hour day at the ballpark? Does it? What's your strategy for dealing with such a long day like that?
That's a good word. I probably should come up with some strategy. I know in the old days, again, back to 84, before the internet, when all we had were faxes and pencils and paper. Very rarely after a 4-game day did I get to bed for the first 3 or 4 days, because the time we didn't even have laptops. We didn't have computers in 84. So by the time you accumulated things, it was time to go back to the ballpark. Internet and everything is great now. So when the games are over now, we punch some buttons, and we get some sleep now. As far as the long days, like tomorrow, the opening game is at 8:30. Myself and the couple other press box guys, we'll get there about 6:30 just to make sure the roster changes, the umpire rotations, things like that. Make sure the internet's working. Make sure our laptops and our Wi-Fi is connected, and so it depends on how long the games are. If we don't you're guaranteed 45 minutes between games for the field to get ready for the next game. Our hope is we don't really pull for any one team, but we kind of like those 2-0 2-hour ball games where we can have more than 45 minutes between games, because when the one game is over, we have that time to finish it up, go get the lineups, put them in, print them out. So strategy it's over in a flash in those. This year, for the first time in a long time, after Friday, we don't have any 4-game days. They're down to 3-game days for 3 days, and then 2, 2, and 1. So we'll have a little bit we won't have to get there so early. We'll have a little bit of a break. But to me, it seems like it's over in a flash. We get there at 6:30, and before you know it, it's 11:30. And because you're just busy the whole time, they're good at bringing us food. We time our little rest breaks when we can and get down there, but time flies, and it just the fact that you're trying to keep track of everything just seems like it just makes the time go faster.
Yeah. All right, hey Denny, thanks a lot. It was great to chat with you, and I hope it's weather, no weather delays, and no tough no-hitter calls for you.
Well, if people are watching and they're seeing that there's a game going to the 8th inning on a no-hitter, they'll know that I do have Sam beside me, who once in a while tries to talk me out of a call, but yeah, let's hope for that clean hit. I mean, no-hitters are great. I'm thankful for the pitchers that get it, but or a clean hit. The first clean hit by each team makes for a nice, relaxing game.
Very good. Thanks again, Denny, and thank you for watching this episode of the Lewiston Tribune podcast. We'll be back again next week with another new episode. Until then, have a great day.